Sure. I think everyone from the waiting room is in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this talk. It's on the Fab City OS, a project that Fab Lab Hamburg has been developing, a digital infrastructure for Fab cities. We have 20 minutes for this talk, and then maybe a little over for some discussions or questions that you can use the chat or however Benedikt prefers. And we have Benedikt Seidel from Fab Lab Hamburg to take over now. And just a note, this meeting is being recorded, so you can keep your cameras on or off as per your preferences. Benedikt, up to you.
Okay, thanks, Mitali. Yeah, I'm also engaged with the Fab Lab Hamburg, but I'm actually from Fab City Hamburg Association, which is kind of the overall organization that manages the infrastructure and enhances it, physical as well as the digital, for Fab City Hamburg. Okay, and today I would like to introduce the digital infrastructure which we develop, not only for us in Fab City Hamburg, but we hope to develop it for the whole Fab City initiative. And I'll start by recapping the overall Fab City mission, and which you are all familiar with, I assume. It's you know, by the name Pito-to-Dido model. What is key for me here is open source hardware. I think to produce more locally, to really reach this goal, is to have the key factor is to have rich repositories of open source hardware. Because only then we can be competitive to the linear economy and have higher market shares for open source hardware products. So open source hardware, for those who don't know what I mean by that, it's documentation for physical products, so like build instructions, but everything you need actually to produce it on a very low threshold. So the most successful open source hardware product is 3D printers. The 3D printers have actually outcompeted closed source competitors. Open source hardware 3D printers are most successful, or have like the highest, or dominate the market in the price ratio from 0 to 1,000 euros. So for example, Prusa printers and all those, that are all part of that are all open source hardware printers, and most of them have originated from the RepRap project, which is owes its large success to the digital infrastructure that they used, which was a wiki, which is not optimal for distributed, decentralized open source hardware production, but still they were very, very successful. And today it's the most, they dominate the market with the open source hardware. And Kevin, now I can see that you're here. I hope you can hear. And we have a few more minutes after 11:20 for discussion, and I hope to hear your thoughts, especially on this. So, what is Fab City OS? The Fab City OS stands for operating system, and it is not one software, but it is a bundle of software. It's a software stack, many different components, because we have many different users in a Fab City. We have Fab Labs, but also companies, we have individuals, and they all do not need the same kind of software, but they all have different demands. So what we will do first with Fab City OS is kind of an install client, which makes it very easy to use for any type of Fab City actor to install just the software that he needs. And what is part of that software? So I have now coming back to the slides, just before I go to the elements of the different components of Fab City OS, what is key, I've already said that an exchange of data between cities, of course, open source hardware, high market shares, I mentioned that, data sovereignty, commons orientation. That is, I think, all clear if you're from the Fab City ecosystem. So I won't go into detail on this. So now coming to the software stack. So we think that for a start of a digital infrastructure for Fab City OS, it's good to have communication, to focus on communication, like instant messaging, knowledge sharing with the wiki, and with a map, and file sharing. That is what we are using in Hamburg, at least, and it's we have started scaling it and interacting with other Fab cities already. So all of these elements or components that you see, GitLab, Element, Nextcloud, and so on, that is all software we already use. It's open source software, and we host it on our own servers, and we want to make it very easy for other Fab cities to install these software components as well, or if they use open source software technologies as well, then we can also, or interoperable technologies, we can interoperate with them. So for example, we have started doing this with our instant messaging platform Element in Hamburg. I'll briefly show you what that looks like in practice, and I hope you can see it now. This is a bit of so here you see there's like a interface of Element. So it's basically like a Slack, and the nice thing is it's open source, and you can interoperate to many different instances. You can exchange data easily and very efficiently, and you have many different opportunities which we are trying out. So for example, we're having here a welcome group where new members for Fab cities can join from our webpage. So a typical user journey for many people joining Fab City Hamburg is they go to our webpage, and here you see our webpage, and then they see participate. Then they log in here to our Element on metrics server. Then they come here to the welcome group, and then they can chat with us. And this room, our welcome group or forum, is, for example, bridged to the global Fab City Slack instance. So everything you write here, you can see in the global Fab City instance. And you can, we not only have this welcome group, but we have many different other groups. And you can group these groups. So there's so many different options. And we're just tapping the potential of this, starting to make use of it. So coming back to the presentation, we also have a map, for example, and we just briefly showing you this based on OpenStreetMaps and Leaflet. And this is all documented on our fabcity.hamburg GitLab instance. And we will make it very easy for new Fab cities to set up their own this map, and also then their own wiki and so on, and have already some basic info on it, and make it a very convenient experience and for new Fab cities to join the network, and also for them to interact with the existing ecosystem. But the heart of the matter, what we actually want to reach, is open source hardware. And so, as I said before, this is like the critical issue. And I see the different other components, I'm coming back a little, just as a tool to finally have rich repositories of open source hardware. So for example, I would like to have my smartphone as open source hardware, because now that I have used it 3 years, I would like to repair it. The screen is broken. but it's not open source hardware. So I can't just go to my repair cafe here locally and have it repaired. But with open source hardware, this would become more possible. So this is our goal. So we want to have all everyday products as open source hardware. And for this, we have engaged in many discussions, also research. I also do a PhD on this actually, and I'm engaged with a research institute at Hamburg University, which has done research on this for over 10 years, and also engaged with many different other communities and so on. And this is kind of what has come out of this, how we can reach this goal of having rich repositories of open source hardware. So, and this is like the core high-tech element of Fab City OS, which we think is like the most, the highest, the coolest thing of Fab City OS. And it's basically an adaptation of Reflow OS, which many of you already know. Whereas it does not only use or enable material passports, but also design passports. And I'll briefly explain this to you. And I hope you can see my mouse, or my, what is Mauszeiger in English? I don't know. My cursor, I think. So I start here in the middle with inventing and designing OSH products. So for example, imagine I have an idea now for a new phone, name it a Fairphone, and have Karen van der Molen make her share her idea with me, and I develop this phone. Yeah, there you go. Karen just showed her Fairphone. And then I want to make it open source, and I go to my local Fab Lab and implement this idea. So I have a prototype. And now I want to share this idea with the rest of the world, because I want to make it open source, but I have invested much effort here. So I want to earn money with it, with the design, but still make it open source. So we offer a solution here. We, first of all, make the documentation very easy. We have so if we go here to the distributed design process, we have a Movedo open source hardware standardization tool. So a problem in open source hardware documentation is in general that there's no standardization. Everybody hosts it on a different platform and in another way. And so we have make it very easy that for you to document it, or for me in this case, to document my phone in a way that it's standardized, and that it already has the design passport. So it's cryptographically saved, that it was me who did the initial documentation of this phone. And it cannot be messed around with, or it cannot be changed. It's very fixed. So I don't need to fear that anyone will pretend that he has come up with this idea before. So I have documented this, and now Karen van der Molen from Fab City Amsterdam has an idea to improve it and improves the design. So she could be one of the other actors here, Yucatan, Paris, or a small medium company from anywhere else, and adds a contribution now to this design. And maybe this has like a 50% or 100%, let's say it's like the overall contribution makes up for 50% of the design, of the value, and I agree to that. So on the design passport is extended, and now it says that 50% of the design is done by me and 50% of the design is done by Karen van der Molen from Amsterdam. So now this design, this improved design, is channeled into an e-commerce store such as Amazon, because this is also, and here we solve a key issue of open source hardware. We think that it's hard for open source hardware designers to reach global markets, to have their products sold. So in Germany, in Hamburg, we will start with Otto Versandhandel. We have not contacted them yet, but we have really good stakeholders there that we can leverage. So this is like a market platform, an e-commerce store where the documentation will be channeled automatically in. So you can just, as a customer, you don't need to change your user experience, but you just look for a phone on maybe even Google, and then it proposes this phone among many other phones probably for you to buy. So, and we hope that, and we believe, and we are convinced that the product will actually have a better price-benefit ratio because it has better design process. So the customer decides to buy it, and then the everything, the open source hardware documentation, everything that is needed to actually fabricate, manufacture the phone is sent to local manufacturing instances or nodes of our local Fab City Hamburg network. So if someone, or let's take another Fab City, let's say Fab City Berlin. It's not a Fab City yet, but let's say pretend it is one. And so the manufacturing information would be sent to manufacturing nodes that are as close as possible to the customer. So we have maybe the frame is by aluminum, and it's milled with a CNC mill in Fab Lab Berlin. But the display is more, or the chips are more sophisticated, and they are fabricated somewhere else in bigger factories, or maybe even abroad. We don't have to start with fabricating 100% locally, but then it's assembled in Berlin, and it's distributed to the customer. And then the customer, of course, has paid for the phone. And now the crucial thing is that a share of this price goes to me as the initial designer and Karen, according to our shares on the design passport. And if this is only done once, and if there's only one customer, then of course this is not really special, but this is really scalable, this process. This phone can then all be replicated across the globe because we only send the manufacturing information, and this is done at low marginal cost. So, and then it really becomes a viable business model if we make this scale. Yeah, so this is what basically the basic idea. And there's another story to it, because we enhance really circular economy with this, because we combine it with Reflow OS, but I do not have enough time to explain this. But you can go to our webpage, fabcity.hamburg, to see some of the front ends of Fab City OS, for example, the map. And you can also chat with us, get an Element account, or install whatever you need to engage with us. And you can check out the code base of Fab City OS at gitlab.fabcity.hamburg. Yeah, that's it for me. And thanks for your attention. And I'm happy to hear any remarks, questions, comments, especially from Karen, if she's still there. Yeah, she is. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so then shall I make a comment?
Yes.
Actually, a little bit, maybe a little bit of a little bit different direction, the question that I got than what you're currently developing. My wonder is, I mean, it's amazing to see how this is developing and how it works, and I can totally see and envision that it could work awesomely. My biggest question and challenge is, how can we get it to be widespread use? How can we, I mean, we talk about Fab cities as if they are a single entity in a city, but it's not. It's a collective of many different organizations, very diverse organizations that work very differently. The government work very differently from ourselves. How, and do you think of strategies how to get all of this to land in those, like, organic situations locally, and how can we make sure that this is going to be spread and adopted and owned by large groups of people?
Yeah, I mean, there's many answers to that question. I mean, or it's a very complex question. And with Fab City OS, I think we cannot solve everything, and it's not our goal. But I think it's really key for the core mission of Fab City which is, as I said, to enhance or to increase the quality of open source hardware repositories that are out there. Because then I think we can have more local production and local fabrication. And for this, I think Fab City OS has a very good, very good technology, because it reduces the transaction costs for engaging in distributed production from across the value chain, from design to fabrication to recycling of physical objects. So many different kind of actors can actually engage with it without understanding the whole mission of Fab City and the commons orientation and so on. So by having this vertical integration across the value chain, I think we have a very, very powerful infrastructure, and the actors that engage with us and that we drive synergies with, they don't need to necessarily to align 100% with us. For example, if we channel our open source hardware documentation in the phone that I took as an example to Autody or Amazon, then we are of course completely aware that Amazon does not share our values, but but it's still it's really, so it doesn't harm our mission or our values, but we still benefit from them, and they can also benefit from us. But yeah, so this is kind of the strategy that I think is crucial. And we can, of course, if we go to another part of the value chain, not the e-commerce, but earlier on, we can it also becomes possible with this design passports for companies and corporations even to engage here and to open up their designs of more complex machineries or products, because they don't need to fear that it's stolen. At least that's the feature that we work for. Of course, there's legal issues, even technological issues, but at least that's the goal. And yeah, does that answer your question a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. Well, before, because I see Leopold really wants to say something, just to I think because it actually was also said by Claire a little bit. So we get the technology to work, and I see the benefit. I think we can all see that it should. I think you're referring to all these different actors that use parts of the system. I think this is a little bit where my answer would lie. I think we would need to develop strategies for each of these actors to get them on board and define and articulate what's the benefit for them to use this particular part, so that you gain momentum. People don't come to these platforms by themselves. No, it's not a natural, it's not a magnet, so we need to kind of develop strategies for engaging and onboarding people and helping them to change their ways and change their thinking for their specific need.
And I would think it's even too ambitious to assume that all customers will change their behavior and understand why circular economy is needed. And with the model we propose, they don't need to, because we have a better price benefit ratio with open source hardware products. So under the hood, it's open source hardware, but you don't see that if you look at the phone that it's open source hardware. And this is also the way how open source software is successful. It doesn't need to convince everybody that Ubuntu software, that Linux or the internet is run on open source protocols, but it's just being used because it's the best technology. And
but that's the challenge also. It needs to be a good product. And I am a Fairphone proclaimer, and but there's a lot of people say it's not the best product out there, to be honest. So there's also, I mean, you need to sell it as well. It's not only the best product, you also need to tell the story around it and see how it affects a lot of other things that you might not have as a primary concern. But when you think about it, maybe you're very much willing to take the offer and accept maybe, yeah, it's a trade, accept the trade-off. So I think the point is there is a lot of marketing and communications work needed around this to get it to be scaled and picked up.
Yeah, I agree. Leopold?
That's all very interesting. What I'm missing is modern tools for collaboration. Like I'm convinced if we are talking about distributed design, we need some tools like Miro. Of course, they are proprietary, and I'm afraid we are not able to develop such things in open source with this quality. But maybe there can be a agreement with Miro, because we need such tools. Wikis are not enough.
Yeah, I agree. And if you want to approach Miro and the company that is behind them, I'd be happy to hear what comes out of it. But I guess we need to focus on. At first, I agree that it would be nice to have, but at first we need to focus on some elements, and then we can increase it later on, I think. Yeah, Wolf?
Listen, why Miro is for you so central, Leopold? What are the key features that you think it's the tool?
For me, it has a very good usability. Everybody can use it, and you can work with graphical representation, and for me, it's an excellent tool. Do you see any alternative? I'm missing such a tool in your operating system. I mean, you just have file exchange and wiki, and it's 20 years old.
Well, the age is not really an argument, but no, that's why I'm asking. Why do you think that Miro is such an important tool? Of course, but there are hundreds and thousands of different tools, and so I was curious to understand better what are the functions in Miro which make it much better or much more central for you. What are the specific functions in Miro so to exchange with others?
Okay, I've done a design thinking workshop totally online with Miro, and it was really great. I mean, there is Mural, which is comparable to Miro. It's just a matter of taste. But I don't see any other tools which can be compared with it.
Yeah. Again, I agree that it would be nice to have, but we have limited resources, and we need to focus on what we think is most crucial for now. But Juan, can you hear us? No. Okay. Well, then, Mitali, I think we have really extended the time already. So
yes, we have. And yeah, I think it's good. It was good for everyone to join, but I think the next session already started now. So maybe can continue the conversation on the Fab Labs Mighty Network, and then take it from there. And I checked with Benedikt. I checked with the Fab City team. they will share the sessions with you guys after the holidays.
Ah, super. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, then thanks,
All right.
Mitali, for hosting.
Thank you everyone. Thanks, Wendy.
And yeah, hope to see you soon in another session or physically somewhere else.
Sure.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.